fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top now.
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Ozicar Skip Barber Series. It's time for round 3 from Twin Ring Motegi, the East Circuit tonight for Season 4 of this championship. Brought to you, as always, by Simspeed and a Virtual Motorsport Mentor Live. Here on Simspeed TV, my name is Ryan Jones, and alongside me, David Haynes. As always, and Jay Kennedy behind the scenes, pushing some buttons. We got qualifying just about wrapping up, and then we'll get into the action, ready for the racing. 2 races ahead of us on a track that isn't used that often, really, in our racing, David.
I'm trying to think about if I've ever raced or broadcast a race from this layout of the Twin Ring Motegi road course, and the answer is no, not to my memory. But do you know what? I think of all of the road course layouts you can have that aren't the full configuration, this one's really not that bad, which is maybe not the greatest selling point, but it maintains some of my favorite features of the circuit, including the tight hairpin at the far side of the circuit, the, increasing tightness radius corners that feed into it from a, opening 90-degree left-hander into a tightening corner, then towards the hairpin. Also still maintains going underneath the oval course twice as well, so it's not a bad circuit, honestly. I think this one is pretty good for these cars.
Well, let's see how it pans out then. Race 1, going to be 9 laps long. This is how they line up for the start. Matt Marsh has the pole, took it away at the very end by 0.08 of a second over Michael Skurlock, who will start alongside him. Russell Clark and Ben Snell share row 2 ahead of Dennis Hancock and Matthew Mites. Nathan Verney and Mark Jeffrey 7th and 8th ahead of Braden Martin and Sean Doyle.
Let's look at the remaining cars on the grid. It's Philip Bakatsoulis in 11th, Russell Marsh in 12th, Peter Wilkinson in 13th, Ira Felberg in 14th, Leon Williams 15th, Jason Fewens 16th place on the grid. 17th place on the grid is Cameron Cousins, then Philip Howe in 18th, Darren Lassou without a qualifying time in 19th, and of course Race Control watching over all the proceedings as usual.
Track temp. About 10 degrees hotter than we've kind of expect in Aussie car competition. That could just mess with a few of the drivers out there if they've been doing all their practice in cooler track conditions. As I said, it'll be 9 laps for this first race, the sprint race of the round, before we back things up with our 17-lap feature race, maybe 16 laps, and another qualifying session in between them as well. But the championship isn't to its second half of the short, sharp seasons that we love in Aussie Kart, and there is not much at the top. It's a very close fight, and drivers need to make sure that they are bringing their cars home in these races and not making any mistakes, because at this point, mistakes cannot be afforded. As time runs out, let's go racing for race 1 at Twin Ring Motegi. It's a long wait. Finally, the lights go out and we are underway. And look at that. From Matt Marsh and Russell Clark immediately moving across to the inside of the racetrack. And Ben Snell quickly poking his head out now to have a look on the outside. As into the first corner we go. Very deep on the brakes was Russell Clark, trying to get around the outside of Michael Skurlock, and he will do so.
Now the cut through that forms the East Circuit as it links back towards the full circuit. Tough first corner here, very much downhill on the braking zone, and the tyres are so tricky when they're cold. They're a treaded, road-based, and quite a narrow tyre as well, so it takes a little while for the temperature to build in these. All the while, car's a bit of a handful.
Skerlock was able to hold on through the right-left sequence and claim second place back away from Clark, who's now fallen behind his teammate Ben Snell as well. There's side by side behind them Matthew Mites and Nathan Verney, Greta Martin watching on.
Verney and Martin are second and third in the championship as well, so they've got a lot to fight for at the moment. Consistency's paid off in the early goings for those guys.
Tell you what. Oh, Sean Doyle, no, there's contact and around goes Doyle. And that is a very awkward collision, damage to both those cars.
That's a little too intimate to be broadcastable right there between those two. A real shame, a lot of damage on both cars.
That's going to take them right to the back of the field. Modem Simulation is going to show us what happened here. They slid wide, and Sean Doyle saw an opportunity to get up the inside and take them 3 abreast, but unfortunately on the exit, he just couldn't keep that car turned. Right there.
Yeah, intertangled cold tyres as well, playing into that as front grip, rear grip, both at a premium. And this is the alternate pit lane that gets used on this layout compared to the normal full GP pits.
There was Snell in third, ahead of Russell Clark, who had nabbed him off the launch, but lost out after losing out to Skerlock. Dennis Hancock has latched onto the back of those two as well. Small little gap. Then back to Matthew Mites, Nathan Verney back at Sulis. Russell Marsh and Jason Fewins do battle for the final spots inside of the top 10. Ahead of Snell and Clark, it is Matt Marsh and Michael Skerlock, and they have not got away by any stretch of the imagination.
Let's pull on with the top 5 pack at the moment. Matt Marsh in the lead is under a lot of pressure. And you can tell that from on board with Michael Skerlock in second. This is that hairpin, sort of the far side of the circuit. Drive off there is very important, and it all feeds downhill into what's turn 1 on this layout, and Matt Marsh is absolutely covering it off down towards the inside and making everyone follow his draft all the way down the pit straight.
Not going to work for Skerlock there. He does the fastest lap of the race, but no way through on the outside for turn 1. It puts you on the outside for turn 2 as well. And that didn't work at the start of the race for Russell Clark. Maybe it can work on warm tyres. We'll see. There's now Ben Snell's on the attack. And exactly what happened to Clark on lap 1 is happening to Skerlock. Attack turns into defense. Can he stop a spot from going back? And that is Matt Marsh going back now and rejoining alongside Snell. Still a slight overlap on Skerlock, which now he loses. And Skerlock is into the lead of this race. And Matt Marsh is already trying to take it back, but it's not going to happen there. Oh, Snell. Catch.
Absolutely hanging the tail out in that occasion. You know, that you could sense that Snell was looking for the lead, but now he's back into 4th after that. Skerlock taking advantage to drop Matt Marsh back a spot.
There's pit entrance on the right. They'll take note of that for our feature race in a minute. Well, not in a minute, in 15 minutes or so. As we complete another lap.
Only a couple minutes away.
Look at that train, by the way, as we just head to a replay. Thanks to Modem Simulation. This is Mark Jeffrey having an incident.
Philip Howe, they had a bit of a coming together. I saw this one in the background of shot. And where exactly does this one start? Oh, that is also quite ugly there as Mark Jeffrey gets his rear wing taken off. I think it was Philip Howe who took it from him. Don't want to throw Philip Howe under the bus if it wasn't him, though. So I'm not sure.
I do anyway. Michael Skerlock continues to lead us away from Matt Marsh, Russell Clark, Ben Snell. Hancock had caught up to them. He's just fallen away on this lap. I wonder if his momentum got stemmed by the top 4. Just actually driving cleanly now and not going side by side, holding each other up. If you're Hancock, you're now looking in your mirror because you've got Matthew Mites right up behind you.
Sort of S's section of the track I was talking about, it sort of flows left to right and then into this left-hander here where you can maybe throw it down the inside if you're feeling game. Ben Snell was pretty close to Russell Clark, but it's still too early in the race to send a dive bomb on your teammate like that. Hairpin's a potential overtaking opportunity, but also a good place to get good drive, diamond off the corner, and then towards turn 1, I think some passes can be made.
Skillock's wary of it. He's moved that car across just to protect that inside line, and very game. He moves straight back to the racing line as well. And Matt Marsh might not be too pleased about that, as Skillock drops a couple of tyres off the outside of turn 1 using all of the racetrack and then some, as race drivers love to do. Marsh follows suit, cutting the, I guess we'll call it a chicane as much as he could. Here we go, look behind them. Clark and Snell, you can see it in his rearview mirror actually on the right hand side. A look up the inside, later on the brakes, and between the teammates there shouldn't be much of a fight. Snell back up onto the podium's position then.
Not too hard fought, that makes a lot of sense between teammates, especially when they're still trying to keep first and second honest.
The issue now for Snell is he needs to get a move on and not hold Clark up, who's given him that spot. I think the spot would have been his, even if it wasn't a teammate, but Clark gave it to him much easier than he could have. Now he needs to really pay that favour by clawing that 5 or so car length they've got now to the 2 cars in front of them, Skirlock and Marsh, who show no signs of separating, as we're about to clock on to lap 6 of this 9-lap opening race. Down the main straight we go again. Top 4 have broken away, 5th and 6th battling behind, but it is a 4-way fight right now. 1.5 seconds across that quartet.
There's still a few just looming in the background, including Hancock and Matthew Mites. As we look at the battle that they're having over 5th and 6th here, Mites keeping the pressure on Dennis Hancock for the minute.
Two very different lines being taken through there by Hancock and Mites. Mites was very aggressively across the inside of the right, whereas Hancock was a bit wider, but it seemed to give him a much better exit out into that little straight, and as such, the gap maintained pretty stagnant all the way down to the next braking zone, so we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple laps. That's interesting. Look how Clark has fallen off the top 3. He's now over a 1.5 seconds behind Ben Snell.
Yeah, he's lost a big handful of time on this lap. Where has that gone? Has he cut one of those chicanes? Did he touch some of the grass and have a problem? Might have just cut some of the corners a little bit too tight there for Russell Clark.
That is the penalty of a slowdown. It costs you time, and sometimes you can game it and not lose as much as you should. Sometimes you lose more than you should. Right now, Skirlock might lose the lead. Tracks it to the right, edges it back to the middle. He goes back to the right. It's not a straight line down the main straight for Skirlock, but it is the inside line for turn 1. That Marsh is going to have to rethink this, because that's at least twice now he's looked down at that first corner and discovered that on the outside there's not enough grip. So where else can he try to sneak this move in? Maybe down here, but he needs to be better through 1 and 2 to get this done.
And that turn 1's a weird one. You're heading very much downhill towards the apex, and then it's still dropping away and then flattens at the exit. Car always wants to understeer there. It's a tough corner to get right, and therefore a tough corner to overtake, but there is nothing to separate our top 3 right now, as Matt Marsh is going to chuck his nose underneath Skirlock, have his nose in front, but then around the outside for the next corner that it feeds into. Ben Snell is watching these two thinking, well, what am I going to do? How can I take advantage of this? Skirlock is still going to hold on to the lead, but they were all 3 under a blanket for a hot minute there.
Well, it was very interesting. into that area I'd highlighted as a possible alternate overtaking spot. I don't know whether Skurlock was just too hesitant on that lap or Marsh has a outright advantage there, but he was much better in the braking zone and, well, evaporated the gap between them. And that's what opened up the overtaking opportunity a second later. As now, watch them down the main straight. Ben Snell right in this fight. This is tricky for Matt Marsh. He can't open up the inside. Has to wait for Snell to go to his outside. Now they're 3 abreast for the race lead. Down towards turn 1, right around the outside for Ben Snell. Takes away second. And they are still nose to tail.
Oh, he wanted first, he really, really did. But now he's going to have to drop back to second. Did Ben Snell cut the same corner that Russell Clark did?
So
he
Skurlock
pick up a bit too much grass.
So did Skurlock, and Matt Marsh then released into the lead of this race at such a crucial time. Look how much that Skurlock and Clark lose as... Snell loses as Clark goes through and takes second away from them both. Now they fight for third.
It's a painful lesson, especially for the next race coming up tonight, that is a corner you absolutely, under no circumstances, can cut. You've got to keep some tyres on the curbing, got to keep some tyres on the pavement. These two guys fighting for the lead have now learnt a very, very harsh lesson. But experience is the best teacher sometimes.
How about Matt Marsh, though? He'll be happy. He lifted off into that first corner and allowed Snell to get around him. He didn't want to get pinched in between Skurlock on the inside and Snell on the outside, and it paid off for him. Maybe not the way he expected, but he does head on to the final lap of the race as your race leader by a comfortable margin of 1.4 seconds from Russell Clark. The battle is for third between Michael Skurlock, your previous race leader, and Ben Snell, who's looked like he's had the pace to win this race, but the slowdown right here has cost, well, second, third, and fourth right now in this race as they run, Clark, Skurlock, and Snell. Here's the move. Covered off by Skurlock. Snell, no hesitation and looking to the outside and then switching back ever so beautifully. Gets himself the inside run. Might pick up a cheeky toe off his teammate as well here. He will. And if he can now cover off the inside, he doesn't even need to. He's taken it away and he's lost the rear end. Same place he did it earlier on. This time it doesn't cost him a spot because Skurlock had to back out of the throttle.
Wow, a lot of smoke laid down there, and somehow he's still going to hold on to third place potentially. Checkered flag is waiting for our podium. It's pretty clear who's going to be the first and the second step, but the third step entirely undecided at the moment.
Out of the last corner for Matt Marsh. Pole position. He didn't look like a race winner for half of the race, but for the other half he has. He's won it after a fantastic scrap. Russell Clark finishes second. It is third for Ben Snell. Skurlock, who, well, for half of the race, that it didn't look like a Marsh. Looked like he could have won. He came fourth.
It's a good result for Matt Marsh, who was your championship leader going into this, with Vernie and Martin second and third in the championship, and they are not to be found on the podium or even in the top 5, so that's a good points haul for Marsh. Keep it down the order as well. Philip Howe just trying to hold on to a spot ahead of Cameron Cousins.
And he does so. Let's take a look at your full results then from race 1 at the East Circuit at Twin Ring Motegi. Matt Marsh takes it out from Russell Clark. Ben Snell on the podium as well, ahead of Michael Skurlock and Matthew Mites. Dennis Hancock takes home P6, Nathan Verney 7th, Philip Backett-Sulis P8 for Russell Marsh 9th, and Peter Wilkinson running out your top 10.
Beyond that, Ira Felberg moves up a couple positions into 11th, 3 places gained from the grid. Jason Fewens 4 places gained from the grid to finish 12th. Leon Williams in 13th, Cameron Cousins 14th. We saw that one against Philip Howe in 15th, and Darren Lassou in 16th. Mark Jeffrey, modem simulation replay, showed the damage on his car and he finishes 17th. Sean Doyle damage, almost a retirement there. 4 laps down in 18th. Braden Martin, same likewise in 19th.
That rounds out your field then for race 1. Stick with us here on Simspeed TV. On the other side of this, coming back for qualifying and our feature race. And we're on the in the Ozicar Skip Barber Series.
Racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh
him.
my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
Welcome back to Twin Ring Motegi, getting the second half of the night underway in the Ozicar Formula Skip Barber Series presented by Simspeed and a virtual motorsport mentor. Qualifying is currently ongoing for our second race, a 15-lapper with a mandatory pit stop. And here is Peter Wilkinson, who is on his first flying lap after spitting on his outlap. His tyres might be slightly hotter than normally on the first lap, but they might not quite have as much performance as a result.
Yeah, it's not the conventional way to do it, but we will wait and see if it has hurt or hindered him. Just working his way through the rest of the outlap at the moment. And I wonder, at the start of a qualifying session, if you take a very wide entry to this final hairpin, so you can set it up for a powerful exit. No, not quite what I'd do, Peter Wilkinson, but you have 3, maybe even 4 laps, if you're lucky, of this session. So the very, very first one's probably not going to be your best.
No, it very rarely is, unless you colossally screw up your next 3 efforts. As Ben Snell goes fastest by 1/100th of a second from teammate Russell Clark. Remember, they were 3rd and 4th for much of race 1 before ultimately finishing 2nd and 3rd. They're both looking to go one better in this second one. Matt Marsh, who took the victory after laying back and having the C's part for him, shows that he has the pace to do it outright as he goes provisional pole in his first flying lap.
Yep, lap times at this point out of 15 of the 19 cars that are going to take the start. No time yet out of Braden Martin, though. He's one of the ones we're waiting on. So was he late out of the gates, or did he have a mistake on his first flying lap? Not sure. Not sure personally, but still got half of the session left. And Snell is second. This is going to need to be an improvement for him. Got to keep improving through this session as the confidence builds, as the tyre temperature gets into the ideal window. He crosses the line and he improves, but not enough to nip pole. That's only about 1/10 of a second or so he's found.
Can be disappointing when your second lap isn't quicker than the first lap of the guy you're trying to beat. Matthew Mites goes up to 5th, finds 1 spot on his second effort. Matt Marsh is still about a quarter away from the main straight. Jason Fewins is theoretically just in front of him on the racetrack. Remember, drivers can only see themselves in qualifying, the way it's set up in most road courses on iRacing. Fewins crosses the line and I've lost him on the timing screen. He goes 11th. There we go.
Yeah, no slipstream to worry about in this qualifying session. It's just you and the track. Bit of a virtual private qualifying session, I think, is the best way to put it succinctly. So there's no working with your teammate. There's no trying to pick up a toe off someone else. You are just working against the track.
It's a shootout without the spectacle of being a shootout.
You got to sound like a lead balloon today. Why you gotta shoot it down like that?
Darren Lassou goes 15th. Matt Marsh, by the way, didn't improve at all on his second lap, so that's good news for Ben Snell.
Yeah, Ben Snell's had some good sectors early in this lap, so he's just got to bring it home cleanly. That's a tight line, hugging the apex all the way around of the hairpin to the line. Is it going to be enough to steal pole position away?
It is provisional pole by 3/10 for Ben Snell. Can he hold it? He's got 1 more lap to go even faster, but his contenders are still coming. Russell Clark goes to 2nd. Matthew Mites is 5th, and is still 5th after that lap. Here's Michael Skurlock. Was leading for quite a lot of race 1. Finished off the podium in the end. Goes to 3rd. So the 3rd laps are looking very quick for these drivers. What's Matt Marsh got up his sleeve? His 2nd lap wasn't great. His 3rd lap goes quick enough for 2nd. But look at the gap to Ben Snell.
Yeah, precisely. Ben Snell's the only driver in the 1 minute 33s for the moment. Everyone else looking around some low 34s, including, you know, Marsh, Clark, and Skurlock are oh so close. But Ben Snell just has a real comfortable margin over those guys. He's got 2.5 tenths to them, and then they've got, what is that, 3/100ths of a second between 2nd and 4th. So 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all bunched together. Ben Snell says, and what? Vernie's got a real handful. Handful there.
They're all in a league of their own as well. Half a second, then back to 5th. Another 3 tenths back to 6th. Marsh, by the way, abandoned his 4th lap. So he will start no higher than 2nd. Ben Snell's closest competitor. Not going to challenge. Snell's final lap didn't count. Russell Clark's final lap isn't good enough. Nathan Vernie in 12th. Goes 10th. Gets himself a top 10 starting spot. What about Michael Skurlock? Matthew Mites. Mites is in pit lane, so he's not going to improve. Braden Martin is 13th. Skurlock's lap, we're hearing, is no good. Braden Martin looks slow as an optical illusion. We're going to find out of the last corner. He's currently 13th, so it's a little bit lower than you'd expect from him. It wasn't slow, he goes to 8th.
That's an improvement. He had a go at me at Suzuka for not including him in the drivers who might qualify in the top 3. Hasn't quite managed to match that form here. Still has got consistent results in this championship. Decent point standing coming in here. We'll see if he can move forward from there in the race. Only a couple drivers left in the final 40 seconds of qualifying who are going to potentially improve. Darren Alessiou is one of them. Locks in a 135.2 for 11th on the grid.
Finds 3 spots.
Yeah, unless Leon Williams is going to find enough to knock him back 1. Currently last on the grid.
It's pretty tight back there, though.
Leon Williams, oh, certainly it is, up and down all the way in the grid. So don't need to find a whole lot to move forward here. Leon Williams is not, unfortunately, going to find enough on the final lap.
Only a couple tenths separating those last 5 cars on the grid. It is tight, no matter where you are in this Ozicar Skip Barber field, and this is how they line up then for race 2 of round 3. Ben Snell on the pole, only driver into the 133s. Matt Marsh will start 2nd. Russell Clark and Michael Skurlock share the 2nd row of the grid ahead of Matthew Mites and Russell Marsh. Dennis Hancock and Braden Martin on row 4. Philip Backett-Soulis and Sean Doyle 9th and 10th.
In 11th place, Darren Alessiou, and 12th, Peter Wilkinson. Nathan Vernie in 13th, Jason Fewens in 14th, Philip Howe 15th, Ira Felberg in 16th, Mark Jeffrey in 17th, Cameron Cousins in 18th, and Leon Williams we saw in 19th place. All of our drivers laid down a qualifying time though. There's not a whole lot to stretch out some good battles at the front, in the mid-pack, and also the tail end of the field. Especially, how close did you want at 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? Near enough identical times there for who was going to be on the front row and who was going to be 4th.
Last week at Suzuka, it was a very short track, and we saw a number of competitive drivers pitting 3 or 4 laps in, which is odd. Normally it's lap 1 or right towards the end. I think given that this track is a bit longer, we might see a bit more of a normal trend in this one. What do you think, David?
Well, definitely lap times over 90 seconds here, even though it's the slightly shorter east layout, not the full road course. Still a decent length of lap in these cars.
3.4 kilometers. So this race comes out at 52 kilometers long.
Did you get your calculator out for that one, mate?
That's not right either. I give up. I'm too tired. All right, let's get into the racing. Let's skip over the math. Time's out. Lights are on. The revs are high as race 2 from Twin Ring Motegi, the East Circuit. It is green, and an even start from your top 3. Not a good launch, though, from Skurlock. He's going to come under pressure from Matthew Mites as Matt Marsh looking aggressively to the outside of Ben Snell, and Russell Clark going with him. Again, Marsh backs out of the middle of 3 situation, much like in race 1. Now the teammates run side by side for the lead through turn 2, and they almost touch.
That's where they've got to be so close with the curbs through there as well. Tyres are cold early. Russell Clark, big gains into the lead of the race from 3rd on the grid. A decent jump, didn't he?
He wasn't afraid to go around the outside, and it's paid off well for him. The cooler track temp may be aiding at that move down at turn 1 that we didn't see pay off really at all in the first race, as everyone else has made it through the first half of the lap cleanly without incident. So it's Clark leading from Snell, then Marsh, Skurlock, and Matthew Mites, your top 5.
Martin up into 7th, also had a brave move down the inside into turn 1. I caught that one out the corner of my eye. He saw everyone being a little tentative and went for a move down the inside there, jumping across the curb of turn 1. So he must have had the revs and the clutch just right, but lap 1, you can see quite a bit of the field pit. So who is going for it? Snell, Marsh, Martin, Dennis Hancock, Sean Doyle. Quite a few of the big names of the series, I think, have gone for this lap 1 pit stop.
Interesting to see the teammates of Snell and Clark go for a different strategy to each other. And it is a 50-50 split in terms of pit stops on the opening lap of the race. Will any of those drivers have issues on pit road? Speeding penalties cannot be afforded. There's no pit limiters on these cars, don't forget. A good stop for Snell. I think he's pulled a gap there to Matt Marsh.
Yeah, and as our good friend Cam Dance learnt last week, you also can't carry a slowdown penalty into the pit entry either. Not that they've been picking up anywhere near pit entry here. It's mainly been turn 2 that's been the problem zone for track limits this week.
Exeter turn 1 and Exeter turn 2 a problem zone for Ben Snell's rear end. Those cold tyres not working nicely.
And Martin too had a huge wiggle. That's more than a wiggle if you're playing in the sand trap.
That's a donut and a half. Yes, so cold tyres into turn 1 and 2. Not your best friend at Twin Ring Motegi. Have a look at this. Turned it in, the rear end just said, no way. Wanted to keep going straight. Did a good job to keep it off the fence, it looks like, from that angle.
Did we see which end of the car got jacked up in the pit stop? Was it the front or the rear tyres? Because that didn't look like.
What end's supposed to get jacked up again? Back, right? None of us remember. Not one of us in the box. Okay. So Russell Clark
living. What did I miss?
Maintains the lead of the race. Matthew Mites behind him. I was asking David, which end of the car are they supposed to jack up in pit lane?
Front. Because if you change the front tyres, you get cold front tyres. The car's a little bit pushy, but if you've got warm front tyres and cold rear tyres, you'll do what we saw Braden Martin just do. Look like Bambi on ice, or, a real handful.
You couldn't think of another example then, could you?
I just had flashback to when I learned trying to ice skate, and I was like, oh, nope, that's what the car looked like.
Ben Snell maintained a gap over Michael Skurlock through that pit stop phase where Skurlock pitted a lap after him. Matt Marsh has really fallen away, by the way, as well. There's the gap between the 3 of them. 2.5 seconds alone between Matt Marsh and Michael Skurlock, not even accounting for Ben Snell up ahead of Skurlock. Be interesting to see what Clark does now, and Matthew Mites as well. Ouch.
Jinx. Yeah, not a good incident to see there, snapping into the wall. hitting the tyre barrier there in all corners of the car for Philip Howe, dislodging from the Skip Barber. This is what it looks like. That's through the chicane that takes you back onto the main layout. He's gone a little bit wide, put the outside tyres onto the grass, spun around, knocked the tyres and suspension and nose off all corners around the front of the car for Philip Howe, and that is, well, at a minimum a tow truck and at worst a retirement.
Looked like he'd gone for the Red Bull F1 aero rake there, but doesn't work without tyres, unfortunately. Nathan Verney pits on that lap. One less on the leaderboard then, in front of the effective battle for the lead of Ben Snell and Skurlock, who has closed up to Snell just a bit on that most recent lap as his tyres came back towards the optimal operating window. The gap between Snell and Clark is only 19 seconds, and there's been a collision in the back of the pack. Nathan Verney and Jason Fewins. That's turn one. And I think one of them was, yes, Verney was coming out of pit road.
Well, I was talking off air about the fact that there's no blend line, there's no rules about pit exit here. Fewins. Wow, okay. Carrying more speed, has gone down the inside, locked up, maybe come across the path there. But there was a little miscommunication about who was going where. You know, unlike Formula One, where you've got, you know, the blend line and all the painted this and that, or some ovals where you've got to stay below the apron until a certain point. There's no rules about pit exit here. And that was Fewins carrying a bit of speed down the inside and locking them up. Miscommunication.
Verney may have just ventured a bit further to the right as well when he saw Fewins make that move, which may have put the 111 Esports driver slightly off. But side by side again. By the way, Russell Clark and Matthew Mites continue to lead. We saw another car peeling off the pit road a second ago. Now there's just 7 cars between these guys. And by the way, Skurlock has got ahead of Ben Snell, and he's 2 seconds ahead of him. Well, 1.2, but... So that's happened off screen somewhere. Oh, side by side, Matthew Mites and Russell Clark. They don't want to hold each other up because they've got to remember the Skurlock and Snell are back there in the pack as well. Remember Snell was 19 seconds back from Clark on the previous lap. The gap is still 19 seconds to Skurlock now, though, as Mites loses the rear. That checks Clark up. Now is when abandoning the full overcut strategy might work in your favor. And that's exactly what Russell Clark is thinking right now. He has to pit and get out of this exchange with Mites. So he pits on lap 5. Probably not what he originally planned, but maybe the best option now.
Kind of interesting there to see Mites think about defending the inside to the hairpin and then realize Russell Clark was actually going for that pit entry, which leads into a hairpin all of its own. Clark's decided he doesn't want to be in a fight right now. He'll take his chances with pit stop. Bit of a wishy-washy milquetoast part of the race to do so. Maybe it's better than fighting for the lead like that.
So Skurlock and Snell both go by him, but he's in the area. He's not a million miles away. Still could be a factor in this one. It'll be interesting to see what Matthew Mites can put down as well. Now that he's unabated out front, as Marsh went purple on the previous lap, trying to close in the ground he lost somewhere on the outlap, or the pit stop. For him, on lap 1, on board with Dennis Hancock, who's behind Russell Marsh.
I think Russell Clark's going to have to shout dinner for his tyre changes after this one as well, because he's got the fastest 2 tyre change we've seen all race at just sneaking underneath 10 seconds as well. So that's really helped him with where he's fed back out into the race.
Little bit of wheel-to-wheel action there. That was Russell Marsh and Dennis Hancock. And Hancock is gonna almost complete the move. Still a sliver of opportunity for a fight back, and there is a fight back there from Russell Marsh, but just no way for him to get the extra speed he needs to continue that fight on to the next corner. So Dennis Hancock now takes it away confidently and puts himself into 10th, which will become 9th as they pass Leon Williams down on pit road. Ben Snell going fastest on that lap, closing in on Michael Skurlock, dropping teammate Russell Clark, who's falling into the clutches of Matt Marsh. This race is really closing up as we get close to the halfway point. In fact, probably at the halfway point. 7.5 laps of 15.
So everyone in the field's pitted except for the top 3. Mites, Wilkinson, back at Soulis. Everyone from 4th on your timing tower there and on back has made their pit stop.
Oh, through turn 1. They make it through and escape the other side. Darren Lassou in 17th, completing an overtake on Leon Williams, who just came out and fired off pit road down into that corner on cold tyres. Braves go around the outside of someone on cold tyres. Here is Matt Marsh and Russell Clark. Remember, Clark pitted on lap 5 and, well, it took him out of the battle with Matthew Mites, but now he's going to be in a battle with Matt Marsh, and he's slowly losing touch with Skurlock and Snell, so it's starting to fall apart for Russell. Here's the run for Matt Marsh onto the main straight.
So Clark almost... Did he give up on defending that one? Matt Marsh is going to go down the inside of turn 1 as his nose mostly in front, but we have seen you can brake pretty deep and carry some speed around the outside, but not enough on this occasion. So Matt Marsh
turned left there. Shut that door.
Has his nose in 6th. By the way, I went back and checked the tape for Braden Martin. Did change the front tyres, but obviously there was still a big lack of grip. And maybe that section that connects to make the West Circuit just doesn't have as much grip as the rest of the track. Might be a bit dustier.
Wonder if he grabbed the grass from the left as he tipped it in.
Could have been that as well. And it was just at the end of lap 1. Honestly, the rear tyres could still be 80% cold at that point as well.
Oh, they'd be pretty cold at that point, wouldn't they? Have to come into a stop after they're really getting hot.
Yeah, 1 lap from a standing start and then sitting on pit lane. So, yeah.
Matthew Mites, a 7.4 second lead. He goes for another lap. Expect him in. Maybe lap 13. Peter Wilkinson second. Up 10 from where he started, but expect him to fall back to at least 8th, maybe 9th, once he makes his stop. Back at Soulis is 3rd. 3 seconds away from Wilkinson and 6 seconds ahead of this battle between Skurlock and Snell, the effective race lead, which might probably rejoin behind based off the pace these two are showing.
Yeah, pit delta is looking somewhere between 25 and 30 seconds. So, yeah,
I don't think it's not that long. Remember, Clark's only 21 seconds behind Mites, and he's been losing time since his pit stop.
Okay, maybe we're looking at a delta closer to 20 seconds or so there.
Yeah.
But still, you add 20 seconds to your leader Mites, and he's filtering somewhere between Snell, Marsh, Russell, Clark, round about there.
You take a big shortcut of that final corner, a much smaller radius to get around as opposed to driving all the way around it when you take the actual racetrack as opposed to pit lane, which is why you save a bit of that time when the delta is a bit less than normal. Skurlock's doing a good job to respond to everything that Ben Snell throws at him, but slowly creeping closer and closer, and eventually Snell's going to get a really good run and make good with that toe. See how he set himself up there through the last corner, trying to get a good drive off. Well, On that lap, he was 400ths of a second quicker than Skurlock.
Ben Snell's gone and stolen the fastest lap of the race there. It's up on your screen at 133.251. And that's quicker than these guys were going in qualifying, I'm pretty sure. Shows that a bit of slipstream helps. A bit more opportunity to grab some tyre temperature helps as well in these cars. Clean track keeps your mind clear. But in the racing circumstances, with these cars, sometimes they go a little bit quicker than they did in qualifying.
23-degree track temp. Still very cool out there. Sun is very much setting, which might be getting into their eyes into some of these corners as well, depending on their graphic settings.
I definitely notice the glare when I'm driving. If you're driving into a sunset at Sebring or at Le Mans, you can see it from some of the camera angles here. Obviously, sunset mainly happens when they're facing west. So that's sort of away from the pits and towards the pointier corner of the oval. An egg-shaped oval here at Motegi, but we're on the road course tonight.
Still, Mites remains out front. Skurlock and Snell demolishing his effective lead over them. Matt Marsh starting to eat into it as well now after getting by Russell Clark. Could be looking at 5th place here, Matthew Mites, unfortunately for him. He did start 5th though, so he can't be disappointed with it. Hancock in 8th. You have to get a move on because he might find Peter Wilkinson rejoining the racetrack ahead of him with the big overcut strategy. And back at Sulis could be in this area as well with his pit stop.
There'll be a question mark around some of that as we look at Snell versus Skurlock. Snell's hunting down. You get a good look, and was that quite wide from Skurlock? No.
Gives him the inside though. Snell looking high and low and getting a run. Is there a dive up here? No, there's not, because Skurlock's dropped out for a second and it's forced Snell slightly wide of the corner. Didn't want to turn in as into pit road comes back at Sulis. Wow. Okay. One way to win a pit lane.
Michael
Matthew
Skurlock
Mites
must be
keeps
sharing
going.
my internet connection this evening. Been dropping at the same time. But he has not dropped Ben Snell, who is still right behind him.
Smooth segue. Smooth. We have dropped Jay Kennedy, though, off his camera stand. There they are. Here we go. Could be a look down here for Snell. Skurlock's on the radio. And he's let him go.
Skurlock's trying to avoid an incident that would cost him a podium. At the moment, they're really looking at 1st and 2nd here, and Skurlock's worried about racing too aggressively wheel to wheel with Ben Snell at this point.
Doesn't want to give up a podium like he did in race 1. Sean Doyle, by the way, got through on Dennis Hancock. They're still under pressure of having their 2-way scrap turn into a 4-way scrap. As Mites from the race lead comes into pit lane. Should be looking at him rejoining in 5th place. We'll see how it pans out. Or 5th overall. Once you take Wilkinson out of the equation and shuffle him down the order, because he's continued for another lap. You can just see Mites coming out of pit road behind Clark there.
And then this next little battle pack of Sean Doyle, Dennis Hancock, Russell Marsh, Nathan Verney right behind them here.
Marsh and Verney much quicker than Hancock on that last lap. If they keep that up, they'll get to him before this race is done. Verney was blisteringly quick. It was 1 second and a bit quicker than Hancock. Side by side between Matt Marsh and Russell Clark. We've seen this plenty of times so far today. Again, it is clean. This is Marsh. So what about a move? I thought better of it. Wilkinson's pitted then from the lead of the race. It's going to release Ben Snell and Michael Skurlock. Down the main straight, wheel to wheel. A mistake from Snell has allowed Skurlock alongside him. And there's 2 laps to go at Twin Ring Motegi.
Back at Solus, at the same time, has been sent to the Shadow Realm. He's had a little bit of contact. They're going to battle for the lead now. Skurlock. Is he done being the gentleman?
Well, he's taken the lead back away and, whoa, behind Russell Clark and Matt Marsh were very close to contact as well. Podium is nowhere near decided in this one. As right to the outside goes Snell, and Skurlock edges back and squeezes him just a bit into the corner. But Snell is so good at getting these crossover moves. He's done it again. Through the right-hander. Wrong side of the track up here. If he can keep the car there, maybe there's a chance up at the final corner in a minute. Still got one more trickier left-handed to navigate. And then we're heading on to the final lap. He can't keep the overlap.
It was a bit of a practice run for the final lap, wasn't it? Figuring out where they can go around the outside.
Oh, he's off, he's off. And Ben Snell is into the lead of the race because Skurlock bowls it off the road at the last corner behind Russell Clark, squeezing to the inside of Matt Marsh, determined to command that inside line. Into turn 1, down the hill. Marsh sweeps across his gearbox and takes the inside for turn 2. That's dicey, that's very dicey. They get away with it. That was awkward though. Dropped it off the road, exiting that corner. There's a bit of contact down the straight. They bang wheels, Marsh and Clark, and Marsh goes through and takes third, and Russell Marsh is on his lid. Not that these cars have lids, so he's had a big incident. He's on his roll hoop, it is. Clark's trying to come back though. He's not giving this up. He's determined not to let Marsh steal this podium away from him. Into the last corner. Ben Snell comfortable out front. Skurlock comfortable in second. Matt Marsh covering the inside, but he should be safe. Ben Snell out of the last corner. Going to win race 2 at Twin Ring Motegi. It's second for Skurlock. It's third for Marsh. And Russell Clark is just going to miss out as his teammate Ben Snell takes the win.
Still a great battle deep in the pack here. Jason Fewens, Braden Martin. He's been pretty unlucky this race, it must be said. He's got a few drivers pursuing him at the moment, including Mark Jeffrey as well. In final hairpin, he might just be able to hold them off. Very dignified YouTube and Twitch handles there on the side of the car.
across the line. Darren Lassu's having a good battle with Leon Williams, and I suspect that he was helped into this situation, David.
We're going to see Russell Marsh. Is this one I saw earlier, or is this after the checkered flag? Okay.
That was on the last lap. Did that car gain speed after it made contact with GG physics? All right, let's take a look at our race results for the second race. Ben Snell wins after a hard-fought fight with Michael Skurlock. It is third for Matt Marsh, fourth for Russell Clark. Matthew Mites is fifth. Peter Wilkinson, sixth. John Doyle, seventh. It's eighth for Hancock. Ninth for Vernie after big contact with Russell Marsh. And R.F. Elberg picks up a top 10.
11th place goes to Braden Martin, with Jason Fewens in 12th, Mark Jeffrey in 13th. It's a pretty big gain, but not as much as Leon Williams, who goes plus 5 places back of the grid to 14th place. Darren Lassu in 15th. Then it's retirement almost for Russell Marsh in 16th, Philip Backatsoulis in 17th, Cameron Cousins in 18th, and Philip Howe in 19th place.
All right, let's have a chat then to our race 2 winner, Ben Snell. Congratulations. That was a fantastic fight and a well-deserved victory.
Hey guys, hi, thank you. Yeah, look, it would have been nice to have a little bit more of a harder battle with Michael, but unfortunately, he was having some internet issues, and he did the gentlemanly thing and backed off and let us both survive. But yeah, I'll take another win.
Double podium for you today, so showing that race 1 was no fluke. Would I be correct in saying that's your best result in Aussie car?
No, round 1, I had a second in the first race and then won the second race. So unfortunately, missing last round is going to really hurt the championship, though.
But it's your best result on a Simspeed broadcast.
Yes, it is.
That's what matters. So a fantastic result. I mean, hey, you never know what might happen in the last 3 rounds. Maybe everyone else misses around as well. But you should buy yourself into some good battles over the next half of the season. Talk us through the actual racing out there today. It seemed very close across both races.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually surprised how good the racing was up the front there. This track's kind of one of those weird ones where you have a lot of straights and a lot of heavy braking zones, and usually that leads to a little bit of carnage in a skippy. But this league is definitely well behaved, and it's great to see all the guys giving a lot of respect. And I don't think there was too much carnage at all in these races, which was great to see.
Certainly was. Who do you want to thank for helping to get it done today?
Oh, of course, a big shout out to you guys for putting on the broadcast. It'll be good to go back and have a suss at it. Shout out to the guys running the league, Ira and all that, and the Ozicar crew. And of course, a big shout out to Team Milo, and Russell says hi.
Go away, Russell. Good job, Ben. We'll hopefully chat to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Ben Snell there walks away. Race 2 winner and race 1 podium. And David Haynes caught up with Matt Marsh.
Yeah, absolutely. 3rd place in race 2, but cracking a little scrap back and forth between yourself and Russell Clark for a bit there.
Boys, how's it going? Yeah, it was a great race. Hey, both races were really good. I was stoked with the first race, my first pole and win of the season, and then, yeah, seem to be having battles with Russ Clark every week now, which is, yeah, I'm having a ball, hey.
Interesting little layout here at Twin Ring Motegi. Maybe a good one for these cars, not one that gets much of a wheel in some of the faster cars. But where were the overtaking opportunities around here?
Oh man, definitely into turn 1, because you get a bit of draft down that straight, which is probably the most draft you get all track. It feels like there's going to be a lot of draft, but there really isn't that much. Sort of enough to follow, but not enough to gain too hard on people. So you've really got to get your moves done in the corners, which is nice. And then after you go through the S's there, before you go under the bridge on that right-hander is the other one I was really enjoying. So
we're not Spa-Francorchamps, but track limits still enforced and in play here. What was your feelings around that?
The track limits, they were all pretty good, I feel. The only place you could really get a slowdown was on turn 2, I believe. If you cut too much of that curb, everywhere else was, it was pretty reasonable, I thought.
Went into this round leading the championship. This is obviously some pretty solid results, standing on the podium 2 rounds in a row, and that wraps up, the first half of the championship. So what's the second half going to look like?
Yeah, we're back to Auslan now, aren't we, for Oran Park next week? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the back half. Yeah, in the lead, but anything can happen in these series, hey, and it's every week is just so competitive out there. So who knows what's going to happen? I'll do my best.
Point structure very different to Formula One. It's one that really rewards absolutely finishing every race, standing in the top 5, standing on the podium. Does that affect how you race wheel to wheel against people?
Oh, definitely. It definitely does. Like, even in that first race, I didn't fight as hard as I probably could have with Ben and Michael at the front, because neither of those two are in for the championship anyway, but they end up giving each other a slowdown and letting me back through at the end. So thanks, boys, for that one. But yeah, it definitely affects how you race. I'm more thinking about, like you say, getting that consistent finish rather than having to win every race. So.
Good results in Japan tonight. Who are you going to thank?
Oh, just thank Ira and you guys. It's been a great series, and thank all the boys. Great bunch of blokes this season. Sorry. So, yeah, good stuff. I'm sweaty. I'm super sweaty.
Well, it's hot on track in race 1. Cooled off a little bit for race 2. Back to you, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And I think that'll pretty much bring us to the end of our broadcast today for the Ozicar Skip Barber Series, but don't fear, there will be more. Same time next week, we'll be back for round 4 of this 4th season, and you'll catch it all live here on Simspeed TV. Make sure to hit subscribe to us on YouTube. Go find us on social media as well at Simspeed Esports Network, so that you don't miss any of the action each and every day of the week, pretty much all year long. Plenty of other great races coming up, don't miss them. But for all of us here in the booth tonight, from myself, Ryan Jones, David Haynes alongside me, and Jake Kennedy behind the scenes, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's going the outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?